Good morning everyone, welcome back to Crafts by the Bow. Today I'm going to carry on and make my fourth project with the 12 Days of Advent crafting kit, the one that's in the sale at the moment. And I've been asked, after making these last week, I had quite a few people say, could you make some more things with just small amounts of designer series paper? They want to get the best bang for their buck, which is great, or they want to use up just little scraps and things that they have left. So last week I made these, which are great for scraps, and this one that only used a 3x3 piece of designer series paper. Now the paper in this kit is 6x6, so sometimes it's not as versatile as a 12x12, but for scrap cards it's perfect. And I'm using this. It's a designer layout that I've used before, and I just keep this in my box and take it out now and then, and it has all the basic things that I need on there. So that's what I'm going to make. And I want to use these papers. I don't have these in scraps at the moment, so all I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a little sliver off each of them to use. I am using basic beige because that's the colour that's on here. So I've got, let me pop that back for you. I've got my base at 8.5 by 11 and it's scored at 4 1/4. But this one is 8.5, scored at 4 1/4, but it's only at 5.5. It's just cut the other way. So obviously when I made this, I had the card cut the other way. But that's fine, it works either way. So let's just bone fold that. And then I have some pieces of basic white. My white layer is going to be 4 by 5 1/4. And that's the one that's going to sit on top of my card. On this one you can see it was a crumb cake layer. So I didn't want to confuse you and put colours or anything. So my base, doesn't matter which way around you cut it, it works. My layer is 4 by 5 1/4. And I have a smaller piece of the basic white for my inside layer. You can make it the same as the front, but this gives just as nice a look with a little bit more of the basic beige showing, and you save a little bit more card. So that's going to be for my inside. And then I need some pieces for here. I haven't really got much of an orientation on this paper. Doesn't matter which way you cut it. And I'm going to cut the long pieces, the 1x4, from the daisy pattern. So all I'm going to do is I'm actually going to cheat, and I'm going to cut them at the 6 and then just chop a little piece off. So I'm just cutting 2 1-inch strips. Now there's lots of patterns in this paper that you could use. Okay, and then I'm just going to trim these down to 4. And I'm going to choose which bit of the flower pattern I like best. Okay, oops, there we go, 4. I don't need that little piece. I'm just putting that away, and I will use that on scraps later. And then let's cut this one down at 4. And again, I'm getting rid of that piece. So I've got my 2 pieces that are cut at 1x4. And then I need 2 pieces at 1 by 2 3/4. And this time I can get away with just cutting a 1-inch strip. So I'm going to look for where the busiest part of the pattern is. There we go. So cut this at 1. And then I'm going to cut it down to 2 3/4. So that will go here. And then another one at 2 3/4. That will go here. Now for this centerpiece, you can do this on a piece of basic white raised up. And stamp your sentiment on. You can do another piece of paper. You can do an embossed piece of card. I'm going to use something from the pack. They have all of these little pieces that are matching that you could cut down. If you didn't have enough scraps, you could cut these as well. Because what do these measure? These measure 4 by 3. So they would be perfect for any of these scraps. But I'm going to choose this one. Now this would make a really nice label, but I'm going to use the back side of it because it has those little daisies on. And so I'm going to make it 3 by 1 3/4. There we go. So I'm just going to chop it down to 3. See, it is 3 there. So if I cut this at 1 3/4, I'd actually be able to get 2 pieces out. But that's going to go just there like that. So that's all of my pieces. In the pack, you also get these embossed pieces. And they're the same size. So you could cut one of those down to go in the middle if you wanted. Or even if you wanted these down the sides. So you don't always have to use just designer series paper. Okay, let me put those out of my way. Right. And then I want a little, like a little decal for the front or a little decoration. And I'm going to stamp this one. And I'm going to cut it out with this die. And I'm also going to use this die to make like a centerpiece for my flower. So I'm going to do this on basic beige. So here's a piece of the basic beige. And instead of stamping with a colour, I don't have the basic beige ink pad. So I'm going to use Watermark or Versamark. In the UK, we often call it just Watermark, but its real name is Versamark. Okay, so I'm just going to stamp this. And when you stamp with Versamark, it gives you a tone-on-tone colour. It's a bit harder to see on the basic beige, but if I just find another piece of card to show you, let's just take one from the box here. Okay. You can see that whatever you stamp in, it looks like you've stamped in the matching ink. It just gives you that tone-on-tone. Can be a little bit sticky, but it takes a moment or two to dry, a little bit longer than just ink. So I have actually already cut them out. So I stamped the flower. I used this die to cut them out. So I've got one here. And then I used this die to make this little piece as well. You don't need to sit and watch Versamark dry in. Now, this doesn't really fit beautifully, you know, on all the edges on here, but I think as an extra layer, it looks quite pretty. So I've got that ready. Let's start and make our card. I've got the larger piece of the white, which is the 4 by 5 1/4, and I'm just going to lay them on. There's nothing to say you have to do it this direction. You can start this over here. As long as you line them all up and make sure that you've got a nice even border all the way around. Let's just move that one over a little bit. There we go. This one's going to go in the middle. Let's move that down a tad. And then over here, oh, I'm going to put that way around so that I can see that flower in the corner. And don't worry if, you know, it's not exact. It's a very forgiving pattern. Can't move that one over. Let's just move over a tiny bit. There we go. I may have cut this just a fraction too long, but we're going to work with it. Okay, so that's how it will look. You can attach it with liquid glue, with a tape runner, whatever glue you prefer. You've got a moment or two just to get it to move. This is that glue that I was using last week. It's very temperamental. So it's had its turn in the spotlight and it's going, I'm going to use a new glue. Don't forget, if you do use these glues, there's also a larger glue spreader on the bottom. So if you have something like a scrapbooking page that you want and you need to spread the glue, that's a good one to use. Whoops, this is already coming out. This one likes being on the camera. Okay, so I'm just going to pop that there. I'm going to leave my other pieces sort of in place so that, you know, I've got a rough idea of where they go, but I'm not worrying too much. If one hasn't got the same border around, you know, I'm not going to panic. I'll just move that a little bit. There we go. Yeah, I'm not going to panic too much. I know they fit. And it's a handmade card. Doesn't have to be perfect every single time. If we can get this down. You can see that I'm not pressing it down all the way yet, just in case I need to move something just a fraction. Okay, now I'm going to press that down because I'm quite happy with that. Whoops. Not that wobbly one. Now this will go in the middle. And as I say, I think I cut that just a tad too big. I was maybe a little bit over eager. So I'm just going to take a tiny bit off the edge. There we go. That will do. So that's, I'm happy with how that's sitting. Okay, pop those back, excuse my reach. And then this will go onto the front of our card, like this. So let's pop that on. It's a really quick and easy kind of template to use. It doesn't take long to make. It doesn't take long to cut or anything. Okay, I'm going to choose my sentiments. You can choose from here. I'm not going to today. I want to use some of my pre-printed ephemera pieces. There is a little packet that has lots of labels in. So I've already looked through and I wasn't sure if I'm going to choose like a small label or a larger label. Where that one's just a little bit wonky, look, I'm just going to cover it up, see how that goes. Okay, and then I've got some already popped out. And this is sort of what I'm aiming for, but I don't really like that squashed over there. I'm going to try the long one actually. I'm just going to pop it right through the middle. And I have a get well card that I want to make, so I might choose that, but that looks a bit narrow on that one, so I'm going to go with this, thanks, I think. Yeah, I'm going to just choose this. You can pop them down, you can have this turned this way. You can always make the layout be portrait instead of landscape. That looks really nice too. Okay, so whatever way you want it. But I'm going to go with it landscape, and I think I'm going to glue this one down and then pop this one up on dimensionals. So let's glue this down flat. Because there are so many things in this kit, so many pre-prepped things, it does make card making fast. There are lots of like hidden gems that you can use. Oops, let's pop this up. I've been really surprised by, you know, how I can use all the little pieces in there. And I have looked on Pinterest and some of the YouTube channels to see what other people are making, and it's so versatile. It doesn't matter what style of card, you seem to be able to get these pieces to fit in all of them. Okay, and let's see, can I put that flower at the bottom where there's that piece that I don't really like? Do you know what? I think I could. I think I could put it at the bottom. So let's have these started and glued together. Because it doesn't exactly fit, I'm not worried about which way I glue it on. I am going to put it on with a dimensional. And I think I might pop one of the little gold gems in it as well. I'm going to have it going just over here. There we go. Let's move that round a tiny bit. And then these little gold embellishments, they don't have adhesive on the back, and there are 2 sizes. So I'm going to try and get a larger one out without spilling them all over my desk. And let's put it on with a glue dot. Where are my glue dots? There they are. The glue dot might be a little bit large, but we can soon scrunch it up. Okay, so I've got that on a glue dot. I'm going to peel it off, and then just the edges I'm going to fold back on itself so that you can't see them. There we go. And pop that right in the middle, like that. Oh, that's pretty. I might pop 2 more on. So let's find 2 more larger ones. Last week when I had these out, I spilled them on the floor, and I'm still finding them. The vacuum has claimed quite a few of them, but I am still finding them everywhere. And you can't even tell that there's any missing. Right, so let's put these on a glue dot too. Now for the inside, you could stamp your own sentiment on there. You could add a little bit more of the designer series paper that you have left over. I think I might cut a little strip to go inside. I'm going to pop these one over there, and then one down here. Whoops. Just folding that behind so that it doesn't feel sticky. There we go. You could use some of your twines. I got this out in case I was going to use it. This is the Baker's Twine Essential, and I was going to use this one, maybe that's crumb cake, but I didn't need it, so we're not using it. Let's pop those onto one side, and let's have a look at our centerpiece. Now, I could cut another piece of this. Where's the one with the leaves? I think I'm going to cut the one with the leaves for the inside. Yeah. And look, it's just about, it's exactly the same width. So I'm just going to cut a 3/4 of an inch piece off the bottom. So that would be, it will be 5 inches this by 3/4 of an inch. You can make it a little bit smaller though, so that you had a border round. And I'm just going to pop it in like this. I'll leave a little bit at the bottom. I like to leave just a little bit. You'll see on most of my cards for my inserts, I leave just that little white strip, because it just makes the designer series paper pop out then. Okay, pop this inside. Like this. I might use another little piece for the envelope. I have a second one of the little flowers that I cut out, so I might glue that in too. I probably won't put another embellishment in, but if you're giving it by hand, you certainly could. I don't want to make it too tall for posting. There we go. And then you could do another little sentiment inside if you wanted. But there we are, a really quick and easy card, using scraps if you have them, but you're not going to use much paper if you decide to cut straight from your designer series paper either. So I hope you enjoyed that. That's project number 4. I will be back in a couple of days with project number 5, and I look forward to seeing your comments and your finished cards. Thanks everybody. Bye bye.